The Last Signal. Chapter 1, When the Windows Broke. The emergency broadcast cut through the morning calm like a blade through silk. David Chen was halfway through his second cup of coffee when the television flickered from the morning news to a stark emergency alert. The familiar tone that usually preceded weather warnings now carried a weight that made his chest tighten. This is not a test. Multiple unidentified aircraft have entered Earth's atmosphere. All citizens are advised to remain indoors and await further instructions. Mom. Dad. 15-year-old Maya burst into the kitchen, her phone clutched in her trembling hand. Look at this. The screen showed shaky footage from someone's backyard, massive, geometric shapes descending through the clouds like dark origami against the morning sky. They moved with an unnatural stillness, too large and too quiet for anything humanity had ever built. Dr. Sarah Chen looked up from her laptop where she'd been reviewing patient files. As an emergency room physician, she'd learned to recognize the particular quality of silence that preceded chaos. This felt different. Bigger. Where's your brother? She asked, her voice steady despite the ice forming in her stomach. Still sleeping, Maya replied, her eyes fixed on the screen where more footage was appearing. Cities around the globe, all showing the same impossible sight. 12-year-old Alex shuffled into the kitchen in his pajamas, drawn by the unusual tension in the air. Why is everyone being weird? He stopped when he saw the images on Maya's phone. Whoa! Are those real? David's engineering mind was already working, cataloging details. The craft showed no visible propulsion, no heat distortion, no vapor trails. They simply hung in the sky like they belonged there, defying every law of physics he understood. We need to, Sarah began, but her words were swallowed by a sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It wasn't quite a hum, wasn't quite music. It resonated in their bones, in the metal of their appliances, in the glass of the windows. Maya's phone screen flickered and died. The television went to static. Then, silence. David stepped outside onto their suburban deck, squinting up at the clear Denver sky. There, a shadow where no shadow should be. As his eyes adjusted, he could make out the edges of something vast and angular, like a piece of the sky had been carefully cut away. David. Sarah's voice held a note he'd only heard during the worst emergencies at the hospital. You need to see this. He came back inside to find his family gathered around Alex's tablet, the only device still functioning. A live stream from London showed one of the craft lowering toward the Thames. Where it touched the water, the river simply stopped. Not frozen, not dammed. The water hung in place like a three-dimensional photograph. Maya grabbed her father's arm. Dad, what's happening? Before David could answer, the world changed. The air itself seemed to thicken, becoming visible as shimmering waves that made their vision blur and refract. Alex's tablet screen showed the same distortion spreading across London, across Tokyo, across every city where the craft had appeared. Everyone stay together, Sarah commanded, her medical training kicking in. If something's affecting the atmosphere, we need to. The windows exploded inward. Not from force or pressure, but as if they'd forgotten how to be solid. Glass fragments hung suspended in the air for a heartbeat before dissolving into points of light that faded to nothing. Maya screamed. Alex grabbed his mother's hand. David felt the world tilt as reality seemed to skip like a scratched record. Then everything stopped. They found themselves standing in their kitchen, but the kitchen was wrong. The walls extended further than they should have. The ceiling curved upward into shadows that their eyes couldn't quite follow. Their furniture remained, but it was interspersed with objects that hurt to look at directly, shapes that folded in on themselves, surfaces that reflected nothing, and structures that seemed to exist in too many dimensions at once. Is everyone okay? David's voice sounded strange, echoing in ways that made no acoustic sense. His family nodded, though Sarah was running her hands over Alex's arms and face, checking for injuries with practiced efficiency. The physics are wrong, David muttered, watching a coffee mug on the counter slowly rotate through axes that didn't exist. This violates everything we know about. Dad. Maya's voice was small, scared. Look! Through what had been their living room window, they could see their neighborhood. But it stretched impossibly far, houses repeating in fractal patterns that made David's head spin. Other families moved through the distorted landscape like sleepwalkers, their movements stuttering and jerky. And among them, walking with fluid grace that seemed to mock human awkwardness, were the visitors. They were tall, 8 feet at least, and moved as if gravity was merely a suggestion. Their bodies were vaguely humanoid but wrong in subtle ways that triggered every evolutionary alarm bell in David's brain. Their limbs bent at too many joints. Their heads tilted at angles that should have been impossible. When one turned to look in their direction, David saw that its face was a smooth expanse of what might have been skin, broken only by a pattern of silver lines that pulsed with soft light. "Don't look directly at them," Sarah whispered, though she couldn't say why she knew this was important. The being, David found he couldn't think of it as alien, the words seemed too small, raised one elongated arm. The gesture was almost casual, but the air around it began to sing with harmonics that made their teeth ache. Mrs. Patterson from next door was walking her dog in the impossible street. As the being's hand moved, she simply unfolded. Like origami being opened, she came apart into component pieces that maintained their shape but existed independently. Her head continued to turn, looking for her dog. Her arms still moved as if holding a leash. Her legs walked forward with steady purpose. Her dog, a golden retriever named Buster, seemed unaffected. It looked up at where Mrs. Patterson should have been, whined once, and trotted away. Alex made a small, hurt sound. Maya pressed her face against her father's shoulder. "We have to get out of here," Sarah said. "Now." Chapter 2, The Road to Nowhere. "The basement," David said suddenly. "Underground. Maybe whatever they're doing doesn't penetrate as deep." It was desperate hope, but it was something. They made their way to the basement door, which thankfully still led to stairs that went down instead of up or sideways. The basement felt more normal: David's workbench, Sarah's exercise equipment, boxes of Christmas decorations. Why would the basement be different? Maya asked. "I don't know," David admitted. "But everything upstairs is being changed. Down here, the geometry still makes sense." A sound from above made them freeze, footsteps that seemed to come from several directions at once. Alex crept to the small basement window and peered out. "Dad," he whispered. "They're in our backyard." Two of the beings moved across their lawn with fluid grace. Where they stepped, the grass became something else, not dead, but translated into a substance that looked like grass but pulsed with faint bioluminescence. One being stopped and tilted its head, as if listening. Then it turned toward the house. "It knows we're here," Sarah breathed. The being approached the basement window and placed one elongated finger against the glass. The window became permeable, like looking through water. The being's finger passed through as if the glass wasn't there, pointing directly at Alex. Silver lines on its face pulsed in a complex pattern, and suddenly Alex was standing at the window, his hand reaching toward the being's finger. "Alex, no!" Sarah lunged forward, but Alex was already making contact. The moment of contact sent a shockwave through the basement. David felt it in his bones, a resonance that unlocked something deep in his brain. Suddenly, he could understand. Not words, the beings didn't use words. But meaning flowed through the connection, meaning that felt like ice water being poured into their minds. "We are not destroyers. We are gardeners. Your kind spreads like fire, consuming everything. We have watched. We have waited. Now we must tend the garden. The child is interesting. He does not burn as the others burn." Through the connection, David saw flashes of what the beings saw: Earth from space, covered in a web of light and energy that revealed humanity's damage. Cities like cancers spreading across the surface. But also pockets of beauty, and children like Alex whose minds were flexible enough to see beyond rigid patterns. The child can learn. The child can be more. "No," Sarah said firmly. "You can't have him. You heal others. You see patterns. You could learn to see patterns in reality itself." Sarah felt herself being evaluated, part of her wanting to surrender to that vast intelligence. But the mother part fought back. We're not your garden. This is our world. Your world is dying. We offer transformation. The connection began to fade as the being withdrew its finger. But Alex remained transfixed. They're not wrong, he said softly, his voice carrying new harmonics. I can see what they see, Mom. The world is sick. And they can fix it. By destroying us, Maya said. Not destroying. Transforming. Like a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. But the caterpillar dies, David pointed out. Does it? Alex asked. Or does it become something better? Sarah looked at her son and saw a stranger looking back, not alien, not yet, but no longer entirely human either. We need to get out of here, she said to David. Now. But when she reached for Alex's hand, he stepped back. I want to learn more, he said. They showed me beautiful things. Ways to heal that you can't imagine, Mom. Ways to build cities that don't hurt the earth. You're 12 years old, Sarah said. Age is just a human concept, Alex replied, the harmonics in his voice growing stronger. They think in terms of growth, of potential. A resonant tone echoed through the basement, they were calling him. I have to go, Alex said. I'm sorry, but I can see the garden now. And it's beautiful. He walked toward the stairs, becoming more translucent with each step. By the time he reached the top, he was barely visible. Alex! Maya screamed, running after him. David and Sarah followed, but when they reached the first floor, Alex was gone. Through the distorted windows, they could see him walking beside one of the tall beings. He looked back once, smiled, and waved. Then he stepped through a fold in space and disappeared. Chapter 3, The Escape. Maya collapsed, sobbing. Sarah knelt beside her daughter while David stared out at the impossible street where other families emerged from their homes, some intact, some missing members, some transformed beyond recognition. We'll get him back, Sarah whispered, though she had no idea how. We have to leave, David said. Before we end up like them. They gathered supplies and made their way to the garage. David's pickup truck sat unchanged, and the engine turned over normally. As they pulled out, Maya pressed her face to the window. There's Mrs. Chin from down the street, Maya said. Mrs. Chin was tending her garden, but the flowers shifted and flowed like living liquid. Her movements were too precise, too perfect. They drove through subdivisions where architecture flowed in organic curves that hurt to look at directly. Street signs displayed complex symbols instead of words. Other vehicles moved in eerily perfect patterns, their drivers marked with silver lines. Are we the only ones left? Maya whispered. I don't know, David admitted. But we're not giving up. They reached the highway, but the on-ramp stretched upward at an impossible angle, corkscrewing into the sky. David stopped, staring. That can't be right, he muttered. Nothing's right anymore, Sarah said. But maybe we need to stop thinking about what's right and start thinking about what works. David drove onto the ramp. Despite its impossible geometry, the road felt solid. As they climbed the spiral, they gained a view of the city below. Denver had become something from a dream. Buildings grew like crystals, their surfaces reflecting impossible light. The river flowed uphill in sections. And everywhere, the tall beings moved among transformed humans, conducting some vast symphony of change. It's beautiful, Maya said softly, and David's heart clenched with fear. Maya, look at me, Sarah commanded. What's 2 + 2? 4, Maya replied, but her eyes remained fixed on the city. What's our address? 1247, Maple Street. But her voice carried faint harmonics. Sarah grabbed Maya's face, forcing her to look away from the transformed landscape. Stay with us, Maya. Stay human. Maya blinked, and the harmonics faded. I'm okay, Mom. But it really is beautiful. Like they've found some perfect mathematical ratio. That's exactly the problem, David said. "They're rewiring us to see their changes as improvements." The highway eventually leveled out, and they drove through countryside that looked more normal at a distance. But up close, the wrongness was apparent. Crops grew in perfect fractals. Farmhouses had too many angles. And the farmers. They passed a man standing in his field, his body stretched vertically, his arms reaching down to 10 crops 8 feet above the ground. Miles passed. The sun remained fixed in the same position. Time itself was operating under new rules. "How long have we been driving?" Maya asked. David checked the dashboard, but it displayed symbols instead of numbers. His watch had stopped at 9:47 a.m., the moment the windows had exploded. "Time's broken," he said. They drove for what felt like hours, following back roads that seemed to resist the transformation. Finally, they crested a hill and saw smoke rising from a valley below, a small town that looked remarkably normal. "Maybe there are others," Sarah said. "Maybe we're not alone." Chapter 4, New Harmony. The town had erected barriers, not physical ones, but signs every few hundred yards: preservation zone, genetic enhancement prohibited, traditional human settlement, natural humans only beyond this point. At a checkpoint, a guard studied them carefully, looking for silver lines or other signs of change. Names? The Chen family. David, Sarah, and Maya. From where? Denver area. We've been hiding in the mountains. After a radio check, they were waved through. Welcome to New Harmony. Report to the community center for orientation. The town was a study in determined normalcy. People walked instead of floating. Buildings stood at right angles. The only light came from electrical fixtures and the sun. But there was something desperate about the normalcy. People moved with tense, watchful energy. Children played strictly supervised games, no imagination that might accidentally reshape reality. Margaret Santos, the elected coordinator, greeted them at the community center. "We've been expecting more refugees. How bad is it out there?" Sarah described what they'd seen, leaving out Alex's transformation. Margaret's face grew grim. 60% choosing change. Higher than our worst projections. "What's happening here?" David asked. "We're maintaining normalcy with difficulty," Margaret replied. "Strict controls. No technology above 1990s level. No consciousness-altering techniques. No artistic or scientific work that might bridge into their reality." She explained their harsh rules. People showing signs of change were expelled immediately. Families had been separated. Children who adapted too quickly. "Where are all the kids?" Maya asked, noticing very few children present. Many families couldn't maintain the necessary discipline. Children are naturally curious, creative. "We've had to make difficult decisions about community stability." "You're separating children from their parents," Sarah said, her voice rising. "Only when necessary. Only when children pose a risk to community stability." "This isn't preservation," David said. "This is prison." "This is survival," Margaret replied firmly. They toured the town, workshops teaching pre-industrial crafts, gardens growing food without enhancement, clinics practicing traditional medicine. It was impressive but heartbreaking. People struggled with tasks that could be accomplished effortlessly by the transformed. "This is what staying human means," Maya said quietly. That evening at a community meeting, they saw the fear underneath it all. Fear of change, fear of the outside world, fear of their own children. These people had chosen to remain human, but the price was constant vigilance. "Is this what we want?" Sarah asked as they settled into temporary housing. "Is this worth preserving?" "I don't know," David replied. "But I know what we'd be giving up if we chose the other path." Chapter 5, The Confrontation. They stayed 3 days, learning what life was like for the unchanged. Maya helped in the bakery, learning to make bread with her hands, kneading until her arms ached. It was satisfying but limiting. When she cut her finger, it had to heal the slow way. David worked with engineers maintaining carefully limited technology. Sarah struggled with primitive medical facilities, her advanced knowledge actively discouraged. On their third night, shouting in the streets woke them. They hurried toward the commotion to find a crisis, an 8-year-old girl with acute appendicitis. The town's doctor was preparing for surgery with museum-quality equipment. "She needs a real hospital," Sarah said. "The nearest unchanged hospital is 300 miles away," Margaret replied. "She wouldn't survive the journey." Sarah watched the doctor prepare for surgery that would be routine in her hospital but potentially fatal here. The child was conscious, terrified, in agony that could be eliminated in moments with enhanced medical techniques. "I can help her," Sarah said quietly. "No," Margaret said firmly. "Once we start using their methods, we stop being human." "She's going to die," Sarah said. "Then she dies human," Margaret replied with real pain. "That has to matter." Sarah looked at Maya, saw horror in her daughter's eyes. This was the price of remaining unchanged, watching preventable suffering because healing had become synonymous with losing humanity. "I can't," Sarah whispered. "I can't watch a child die when I know how to save her." But before she could act, another voice cut through the crowd. "There's no need." Everyone turned to see Alex walking down the street, silver lines tracing patterns of light across his skin. His presence caused immediate panic, people backing away, hands reaching for weapons. "Stay back," the doctor called. "This is a preservation zone." "I know," Alex said calmly. "I'm not here to change anyone. I'm here because my sister is in pain." "Your sister?" Margaret looked between Alex and Sarah with dawning understanding. "My son," Sarah said quietly. "He chose transformation." The crowd's reaction was immediate. Shouts of "traitor" and "contamination" filled the air. Several people raised weapons, though they seemed to realize the futility. Alex ignored the hostility and walked to the house. "May I?" he asked the doctor politely. "Absolutely not. I won't have you corrupting this child." "I won't change her," Alex said. "I'll simply heal her appendix. A minor adjustment, nothing permanent." "Any enhancement technique is prohibited," Margaret said, blocking his path. Alex looked at her with starlight eyes. "A child is dying. Does your ideology matter more than her life?" "Yes," Margaret said, though her voice shook. "If we compromise our principles, we lose everything." "But consider this," Alex said. "What if your fear of change has already changed you? What if trying to remain static has made you less human, not more?" He gestured at the crowd, faces twisted with fear and anger, hands clutching weapons, children hidden like the world was full of monsters. When did humans become so afraid of helping each other? When did preserving purity become more important than preserving life? The question hung in the air. Margaret looked torn, seeing what Alex meant. Their determination to remain unchanged had changed them into something harder, less compassionate. "Let me heal the child," Alex said simply. "Then exile my family if you must. But don't let her die to prove a point." The debate continued until the child's condition worsened. Finally, Margaret stepped aside. "Do it. But know that you and your family will have to leave afterward." Alex entered the house. Sarah followed, finding the little girl writhing in pain while her parents tried to comfort her. "What's her name?" Alex asked gently. "Emma," the mother whispered. Alex knelt beside the bed and placed his hand on Emma's forehead. "I'm going to make the pain stop, okay?" Silver lines pulsed with soft light, and the child's expression relaxed into peaceful sleep. Alex then placed his other hand over her abdomen, precisely reducing inflammation, encouraging natural healing, eliminating infection. The process took 5 minutes. When Alex removed his hands, Emma was breathing peacefully, her color normal. "She'll sleep for a few hours," Alex told the parents. "When she wakes up, she'll be completely healthy." The parents stared in amazement, then at Alex with gratitude and fear. "Thank you," Emma's father whispered. Outside, the crowd showed mixed reactions: relief, anger, confusion about what this meant. "You saved her life," Margaret said to Alex. But you've created a precedent that threatens everything we've built. I understand, Alex replied. Change is difficult. Even positive change. You need to leave. Tonight. Sarah nodded. They gathered their things and left in pre-dawn darkness, Margaret providing supplies and maps but making clear that word of their association with a transformed family would spread. Where do we go now? David asked. There are other options, Alex said. Communities less rigid about transformation. Mixed settlements where changed and unchanged try to coexist. Even transformed communities that welcome unchanged humans as honored guests. The phrase made David wince. So we become living museum pieces. Not museum pieces. Consultants. Unchanged humans have perspectives the transformed sometimes need. Chapter 6, The Mountain Cabin. As they walked, Maya said suddenly, I want to see them. The transformed communities. I want to understand what we'd be choosing. Alex smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. He gestured, and reality folded around them. One moment they were on a mountain road, the next, they stood in a plaza that existed in several dimensions simultaneously. The architecture was impossible, buildings that grew like living things, streets that flowed like water but supported weight, structures existing in spaces between other structures. Transformed humans moved with grace and purpose, their silver-lined faces serene. Welcome to New Geneva, Alex said. One of the first fully transformed cities. Maya stared at the impossible beauty. Children with knowledge-deep eyes played games involving reality manipulation. Artists created multi-dimensional sculptures. Scientists worked on projects through pure thought. It's incredible, she breathed. It's also alien, David pointed out. Beautiful, but completely alien. They toured New Geneva, meeting transformed humans from all walks of life. But Sarah noticed something troubling. Despite their connections and enhanced abilities, the transformed seemed distant. They interacted politely but with vast spaces between them. Do you have friends? She asked their guide, a former teacher. The woman considered the question. I have connections. Deep, meaningful connections to thousands of consciousness. But friendship as you understand it, becomes difficult when you can perceive someone's thoughts directly. Privacy becomes meaningless, and with it, the discovery that makes relationships interesting. That evening, they attended a gathering where transformed humans shared experiences. It was beautiful, thoughts becoming visible light, emotions creating music. But Maya noticed something missing. They're perfect, she said. But they're not fun. Perfection often isn't, David replied. Later, in Alex's dwelling, a space inside a multi-dimensional tree, Alex reflected on their questions. What would you choose, if you could go back? Sarah asked. Alex considered seriously. I don't know. The knowledge, abilities, perspective, they're incredible. But the cost? He squeezed her hand. The cost is higher than I understood. We need time to think, David said. Time is the one thing we have less of each day, Alex replied. Soon, the choice may be made for us. But before they could decide, Alex made an unexpected offer. There's another path. Partial transformation. Some communities have found ways to gain abilities while maintaining essential human consciousness. He showed them images of settlements between full transformation and unchanged humanity, people with enhanced abilities but recognizable emotions, technology responding to thought but not abandoning physical reality. How is that possible? David asked. Consciousness exists on a spectrum. Some humans have found ways to accept limited enhancement while maintaining core identity. What's the catch? It's unstable. Partial transformation tends to progress toward full transformation over time. But some manage to maintain the balance indefinitely. It sounds like a compromise, David said. All choices are compromises. The question is what you're willing to trade. The next morning, Alex brought them to a partially transformed community called Haven. The buildings were organic curves but grounded in physics. People moved with enhanced grace but showed full human emotions. Silver lines traced simpler patterns than on the fully transformed. They met Dr. Lisa Park, who explained their approach. The key is maintaining choice. Everyone here can access enhanced abilities, but no one is required to use them. Voluntary limitation helps preserve core human consciousness. What about progression? About 10% choose full transformation each year. We consider it natural rather than failure. They spent 3 days experiencing partial transformation firsthand. Maya learned to create small lights and gentle healing touches while remaining essentially herself. David gained enhanced spatial perception while keeping his methodical engineering approach. Sarah developed cellular-level healing abilities while maintaining her bedside manner. "It feels possible," Sarah said. "Like we could do this without losing ourselves." "But for how long?" David asked. "Most people don't stay partially transformed forever." "Maybe that's okay," Maya said. "Maybe growing and changing is what humans do. The question isn't whether we'll change, but whether we'll choose how." They were approached by Marcus, a teenager from New Harmony who'd been brought to Haven after developing spontaneous abilities. "How are you?" Sarah asked. "Better. Sadder, but better. I miss my parents, but I couldn't stay unchanged. Here, I can learn control while still being mostly human." "Do you see your parents?" Marcus's expression grew pained. "They visit sometimes. But it's hard. They see me as lost. I see them as limited. We love each other, but we can't really communicate anymore." It was a sobering reminder that all choices came with costs. Chapter 7: The Decision. That evening, the Chen family gathered to decide. "What do you think?" Sarah asked. "I think we're trying to solve an impossible problem," David said. "Every choice involves giving up something essential. Staying unchanged means fear and limitation. Full transformation means losing humanity. Partial transformation means accepting instability. So what do we do? Maybe we stop trying to find the perfect choice and start asking what we can live with." "I can live with partial transformation," Maya said. "I want to heal people, to see beauty, to live longer and explore more. But I don't want to lose the ability to be surprised, to laugh, to feel messy human emotions." "I want to help people," Sarah added. "But as a human doctor with enhanced capabilities, not as some alien consciousness." David was quiet. "I keep thinking about Emma. Her parents faced an impossible choice: let their daughter die to preserve principles, or accept help that violated everything they believed. What's your point? Sometimes the right choice isn't about what you believe or want. Sometimes it's about what's needed in the moment. And what's needed now?" David looked out at Haven's glowing buildings, at the partially transformed humans creating something new between extremes. Bridges. People who can move between worlds, who can help unchanged humans understand what's happening and help transformed humans remember what they used to be. Maya nodded. "I can live with being a bridge." "So can I," Sarah said. They asked Alex to join them. He arrived within moments. "We've decided," Sarah told him. "We want partial transformation. We want to become bridges between worlds." Alex's expression was complex: relief, sadness, hope, and pride. "Are you sure?" "Once you begin enhancement, there's no going back." "We're sure. But gradually, carefully. We want to maintain as much human consciousness as possible while gaining abilities to help others. Dr. Park has agreed to guide the process." Alex nodded. "Then I'll stay nearby while you transform. In case you need help." "Thank you." "And Alex? Whatever happens, you'll always be our family." "I know," Alex replied, his voice carrying harmonics like tears. "That's the most human thing any of us could ask for." Chapter 8: Transformation. The enhancement process was gradual, carefully controlled, with each change integrated slowly into their existing personalities. Maya developed silver tracings around her fingertips, allowing her to create small lights and accelerate plant growth. She could sense mathematical patterns without losing appreciation for beauty. David's enhancements manifested as enhanced spatial perception and multidimensional visualization. He could see stress patterns and optimal solutions while maintaining methodical human thinking. Sarah's changes were most dramatic, silver lines following her circulatory and nervous systems, giving cellular-level perception and healing through touch. But she maintained her empathy and human approach to patient care. The process took 2 weeks with careful monitoring to ensure they didn't progress beyond partial transformation. Dr. Park's team had developed techniques for creating stable stopping points. "How do you feel?" Alex asked when complete. Maya flexed her fingers, watching light dance between them. "Different. But still me. Like I've been given new tools but I'm still the same person using them. The abilities feel like extensions of who we already were," Sarah added. David tested his enhanced perception, seeing stress patterns without losing aesthetic appreciation. Like getting a new sense without losing the old ones. "Good," Alex said, relief evident. "You're still my family. Enhanced, but still human in all the ways that matter." They spent days learning to integrate their abilities. Maya could accelerate learning while thinking through problems in human ways. David perceived optimal solutions while enjoying creative problem-solving. Sarah learned to heal with touch while maintaining diagnostic thinking and emotional connection. "What now?" David asked. "Now we go back into the world and help however we can," Sarah said. "Unchanged humans who need healing. Transformed humans who need reminders of what they used to be. Anyone caught between worlds who needs a bridge. It won't be easy," Dr. Park warned. "Unchanged humans will fear you because of your abilities. Fully transformed may see you as limited. You'll exist between worlds, belonging fully to neither." "That's okay," Maya said. "Bridges aren't supposed to belong to either side. They're supposed to help people cross." As they prepared to leave Haven, Alex made an unexpected announcement. "I want to come with you. Not to influence your choices, but to help. A fully transformed human traveling with partially enhanced humans, we could reach more people. What about your connection to transformed consciousness?" The transformed consciousness is vast and patient. It can spare one individual. And maybe this is the work I'm supposed to be doing, helping families stay together across the transformation divide. "Are you sure? It might be dangerous." Alex smiled, both mathematically perfect and perfectly human. "I'm sure. We're family. Families should stick together, whatever they become." Chapter 9, Building Bridges. 6 months later. Maya stood in what had once been downtown Denver, watching children play in a park that existed in 3 dimensions simultaneously. Some children were unchanged humans giggling as they chased each other through normal playground equipment. Others were partially enhanced, creating light shows as they played. A few were fully transformed, their silver-traced faces serene as they guided reality-shaping games. All of them were playing together. "It's working," she said to her father, who was consulting with engineers, some transformed, some partially enhanced, some unchanged, about rebuilding infrastructure that could support all 3 types of humans. Slowly, David replied. "But yes, it's working." The Chen family had spent months traveling between communities, helping establish gradient zones, areas where unchanged, partially enhanced, and fully transformed humans could coexist. It was delicate work requiring constant negotiation, but it was yielding results. Sarah emerged from a medical clinic serving patients across the enhancement spectrum. She'd been treating everything from broken bones to consciousness fragmentation syndrome. "How was your day?" Maya asked. "Busy." "Good." Sarah wiped her hands on a towel that briefly glowed silver, sterilizing itself. "We had a family today, unchanged parents, teenage daughter developing spontaneous abilities. 6 months ago, that would have meant separation. Today, we helped them find ways to stay together while accommodating different needs." "More bridges," Maya said with satisfaction. Alex appeared with fluid transformed movement, though he'd learned to moderate his grace to avoid intimidating unchanged humans. He'd become an ambassador between communities, using his vast consciousness to solve problems requiring perspectives from multiple worlds. The council meeting went well, he reported. 3 more gradient zones approved, and unchanged communities are starting to trust that we're not forcing transformation. Any resistance? David asked. Some. Groups on both sides who think coexistence is impossible. But they're minorities now. The hardest cases were ideological purists, people so committed to their vision of humanity that they couldn't accept multiple valid forms of consciousness. But those voices were becoming less influential as more people saw practical benefits of coexistence. I had an interesting conversation today, Alex said. With one of the gardeners. Maya looked up sharply. The gardeners were the alien intelligences who had initiated transformation. Most humans never interacted with them directly. What do they want? To understand how we're making this work. Most species they've encountered either accept transformation completely or reject it completely. They've never seen successful maintenance of multiple consciousness forms simultaneously. Are they pleased? Alex accessed the transformed network. Surprised would be better. And perhaps impressed. They're considering offering similar approaches to other species. So we're an experiment, Maya said. We've always been an experiment. The question is whether we're successful. As if summoned, reality shimmered, and one of the gardeners manifested, not the tall beings from the initial transformation, but a living geometric pattern existing between thoughts. The garden grows in unexpected ways, it communicated. You have created something we did not anticipate. Is that good or bad? Maya asked boldly. It is, interesting. Most species we tend choose a single path, transformation or preservation. You have chosen all paths simultaneously. The garden contains multiple types of flowers now, each contributing to the whole in different ways. Sarah stepped forward. Will you let us continue? This experiment in coexistence? We do not control growth once it begins. We plant seeds and tend conditions. What grows depends on the soil, the rain, the choices of the growing things themselves. You have chosen to grow in directions we did not plant, but growth is growth. The gardener's presence intensified, and Maya felt herself being evaluated against some incomprehensible standard. The partially enhanced show particular promise. They bridge gaps we thought unbridgeable. They demonstrate that consciousness can expand without losing its essential nature. This is valuable knowledge. What happens now? David asked. Do you continue transforming other worlds? Do you change your approach based on what you've learned here? We continue our work as we always have, planting seeds, creating conditions for growth, allowing each species to choose its own path. But now we have new seeds to plant, new conditions to create. The possibility of gradient transformation, of maintaining multiple forms of consciousness simultaneously. The gardener began to fade, its geometric patterns dissolving back into quantum foam. Thank you for teaching us that gardens need not contain only one type of flower. When it was gone, the Chen family stood in silence, processing what they'd experienced. Did we just change the course of galactic civilization? Maya asked. I think, Alex said slowly, we just proved that being human doesn't have to mean staying the same. It can mean choosing how to grow. And that choices don't have to be binary, Sarah added. Sometimes the answer is an either-or. Sometimes it's both and. Chapter 10, The New Garden. As evening fell over Denver, they made their way home, not to the cabin in the mountains, but to a new kind of dwelling that existed partially in normal space and partially in folded dimensions. It was designed for a partially enhanced family, comfortable for their human needs but adaptable to their enhanced capabilities. Maya sat on the porch, practicing light weaving while doing homework that would have been impossible for an unchanged human but was perfectly manageable for her enhanced but essentially human consciousness. David worked on architectural plans for buildings that could house multiple types of humans comfortably. Sarah reviewed medical cases spanning the full spectrum of human consciousness. Alex simply sat with them, his vast transformed awareness focused on the simple pleasure of being with his family. Do you think we made the right choice? Maya asked as stars appeared in the alien-tinted sky. I think, Sarah said, we made the most human choice possible. We chose to grow without losing ourselves. We chose to help others while staying true to our values. We chose family over ideology. We chose to be bridges, David added. And bridges are always between worlds. That's what makes them valuable. Alex smiled, his expression both mathematically perfect and perfectly human. We chose to remain a family, whatever else we became. And that might be the most important choice of all. In the distance, they could hear the sounds of the city, unchanged humans working and laughing, transformed humans conducting their vast symphonies of consciousness, and partially enhanced humans like themselves serving as translators between both worlds. It was chaotic, imperfect, sometimes difficult. It was beautifully, messily, recognizably human. What's next? Maya asked. Tomorrow, Sarah said, we keep building bridges. We keep helping people find ways to grow without losing themselves. We keep proving that humanity can evolve without abandoning what makes us human. And after tomorrow? Maya pressed. Alex consulted the vast network of transformed consciousness, seeing possibilities branch out like an infinite tree of potential futures. After tomorrow, we continue to surprise everyone, including ourselves, with what's possible when you refuse to accept that growth requires loss, that change requires abandonment, that evolution requires becoming something other than what you are. We remain human, David said simply. Whatever that comes to mean. Maya leaned back in her chair, watching the alien stars wheel overhead in patterns that would have been impossible 6 months ago. She thought about the journey that had brought them here, from the terror of that first morning when the windows exploded, through the painful separation when Alex chose transformation, to their reunion and discovery of a third way. You know what I think, she said finally. I think the gardeners got it wrong at first. They thought the choice was about what kind of flower to plant. But we showed them that the best gardens have all kinds of flowers. Even weeds? David asked with a smile. Especially weeds, Maya replied. Weeds are just flowers that grow where they're not expected. Sarah reached over and took her daughter's hand, her enhanced daughter who could create light with her thoughts but still got excited about her favorite TV show, who could accelerate her own learning but still needed help with algebra, who could sense mathematical patterns in nature but still laughed at her father's terrible jokes. I'm proud of you, she said. All of you. For making the hard choice, for staying together, for proving that families can survive anything if they refuse to give up on each other. Even alien transformation, Alex added, his voice carrying harmonics that somehow sounded like laughter. Especially alien transformation, David agreed. As the night deepened around them, they sat in comfortable silence, each lost in their own thoughts about the future. The world had changed beyond recognition, but they had changed with it while somehow remaining themselves. They were living proof that evolution didn't have to mean extinction, that growth didn't require abandoning your roots. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, unchanged humans who needed healing, transformed humans who needed grounding, partially enhanced humans who needed guidance in maintaining their balance between worlds. There would be conflicts to mediate, bridges to build, families to help stay together across the spectrum of human consciousness. But tonight, they were simply a family sitting on their porch, enhanced and expanded but still fundamentally human, still fundamentally connected to each other by bonds that no transformation could break. The Chen family had faced the choice between staying human and becoming something more, and they had discovered a third option, becoming more human than they had ever been before. In the end, that might have been the most important discovery of all, not just for them, but for every species in the galaxy that would face the gardener's choice in the years to come. The universe was vast enough for all kinds of consciousness, all forms of growth, all varieties of what it meant to be alive and aware and connected to something larger than yourself. The garden could hold them all. Epilogue, Seeds. 1 year later. Dr. Sarah Chan Park stood before a gathering of medical professionals from across the enhancement spectrum, preparing to deliver a keynote address at the first International Conference on Gradient Medicine. The audience included unchanged human doctors working with traditional techniques, partially enhanced physicians like herself who blended technological healing with human empathy, and fully transformed healers whose abilities transcended anything previously thought possible. 12 months ago, she began, her voice carrying the slight harmonic undertones that marked her as partially enhanced. I thought medicine was about fighting disease. Today, I understand that medicine is about facilitating harmony, between mind and body, between individual and community, between what we are and what we might become. In the audience, Maya Chin Park, she had chosen to take Dr. Park's surname as a gesture of respect for their mentor, watched her mother with pride. At 16, Maya had become one of the youngest certified bridge counselors, helping families navigate the complex emotional terrain of gradient transformation. She could create complex light sculptures with her thoughts, perceive mathematical relationships that would have baffled unchanged humans, and accelerate her learning to inhuman speeds. But she still collected vintage band t-shirts, still got nervous before dates, and still called her father Dad in exactly the same exasperated tone she'd used before the transformation. David Chin Park sat beside his daughter, reviewing architectural plans on a tablet that responded directly to his enhanced spatial perception. He was designing the framework for New Portland, a city specifically planned to accommodate all varieties of human consciousness. The buildings would grow organically like those in transformed cities, but remain grounded in physics that unchanged humans could understand. The transportation systems would respond to thought for those capable of such interaction, but include traditional manual controls for those who preferred them. It was perhaps the most complex engineering challenge ever attempted, requiring him to think like an unchanged human, a partially enhanced human, and a fully transformed consciousness simultaneously. He loved every minute of it. Alex Chin Park materialized in the seat beside his father, not through any dramatic folding of space, but simply by walking up and sitting down like any normal person might. Over the past year, he had learned to modulate his presence, to exist in the world without overwhelming it. He now served as a primary liaison between the transformed collective and the various gradient communities, helping to negotiate resource allocation and coordinate responses to global challenges. "How's the design coming?" he asked David, though as a fully transformed consciousness he could have simply accessed the information directly. He had learned that asking questions, waiting for answers, engaging in the slow dance of human conversation was a way of honoring his family's chosen path. "Complex," David replied. "But good complex. The kind of complexity that comes from including everyone instead of choosing sides." "Speaking of including everyone," Maya said, "I got confirmation today. The Johannesburg Collective has agreed to the Family Integration Program. That makes 12 transformed communities worldwide that are now accepting unchanged and partially enhanced residents." "Excellent," Alex said. "And the unchanged settlements?" 47 have opened their doors to gradient residents. New Harmony was actually one of the first. Margaret Santos put forward the proposal herself after seeing the medical care results in gradient zones. Sarah finished her presentation to sustained applause and joined her family in the audience for the next speaker, Marcus Santos, Margaret's nephew, who had become a leading researcher in consciousness stability among the partially enhanced. "The key insight," Marcus was saying, "is that partial transformation isn't unstable because it's incomplete, it's unstable because we treated it as a way station rather than a destination. When gradient humans accept their enhancement level as a choice rather than a compromise, stability increases dramatically." "He's gotten good at this," Sarah whispered to David. "He had good teachers," David replied, remembering the scared teenager they'd met in Haven. After the conference, the Chin Park family walked through downtown Seattle, which had become the first major gradient city. Unchanged humans operated traditional shops alongside partially enhanced artisans creating impossible sculptures and fully transformed philosophers conducting research into the nature of consciousness itself. Children from all three groups attended integrated schools where the curriculum adapted to each student's capabilities while ensuring everyone learned the core skills needed to navigate their complex world. It wasn't perfect. There were still tensions, still communities that chose isolation over integration, still individuals who struggled with their enhancement level or lack thereof. But it was working in ways that none of them had dared to hope for during those first terrible days when reality itself had come apart. "I got a message today," Alex said as they paused by the waterfront. From the Gardener Collective. They wanted to update us on their expansion activities. Good news or bad news? Maya asked. Complicated news. They've begun offering gradient transformation to 3 other species. Early results suggest that our model is replicable, though each species finds its own way of maintaining multiple consciousness levels. How do you feel about that? Sarah asked. About our family drama becoming a galactic template? Alex considered the question seriously. Proud. Terrified. Hopeful. Very human emotions for a transformed consciousness to experience. Maybe that's the point, David said. Maybe the goal isn't to transcend human emotions, but to expand the range of what human emotions can encompass. They walked home through streets that pulsed gently with bioluminescent guidelights, past buildings that grew and shifted to accommodate their inhabitants' needs, under stars that sang harmonies audible to anyone who chose to listen. It was an alien world in many ways, but it was also unmistakably human, chaotic, creative, constantly changing, and held together by the stubborn insistence that different didn't have to mean incompatible. What do you think happens next? Maya asked as they reached their house, a structure that existed simultaneously as a traditional family home, a dimensional fold accessible to transformed consciousness, and a bridge space where all types of humans could interact comfortably. Whatever we choose to make happen, Sarah said. That's the gift the gardeners really gave us, not transformation, but the understanding that consciousness is creative. We shape reality by how we choose to perceive it, relate to it, and exist within it. So we keep building bridges, David said. We keep choosing connection over separation, Alex added. We keep proving that families can survive anything, Maya concluded. As they settled into their evening routine, Maya working on homework that challenged her enhanced cognition while Alex helped with problems that stumped even her accelerated learning, David and Sarah planning the next day's work while maintaining the comfortable rhythms of a decades-long marriage, the house filled with the particular harmony that comes from people who have chosen each other over and over again, despite every pressure to grow apart. Outside, the gradient city hummed with the voices of 3 types of human consciousness learning to sing together. It was the sound of a species that had faced the choice between evolution and extinction and had somehow found a third option, evolution through inclusion rather than replacement. The gardeners had planted seeds expecting a single type of flower to grow. Instead, they had discovered that the most beautiful gardens were wildflower meadows, chaotic, diverse, resilient, and more gorgeous than any planned design could ever be. The Chen Park family had become gardeners themselves now, tending a world where human consciousness could bloom in any form it chose, where transformation was always possible but never required, where the only constant was the commitment to help each other grow. It was, they had discovered, the most human work imaginable, creating space for everyone to become their fullest selves while ensuring no one had to make that journey alone. The seeds they planted would grow in ways they couldn't imagine, spread to places they would never see, take root in species they would never meet. But they would carry the essential DNA of the discovery the Chen Park family had made in those desperate early days of transformation. Love is stronger than evolution. Connection transcends consciousness. And families, however they're configured, however they change, are the force that holds the universe together. In the end, that might be the most important truth in any galaxy: no one transforms alone, and no one has to choose between growing and belonging. The garden was vast enough for all of them.